Hello, good morning, and welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep. Today, let's initiate a discussion on local government. There's government at the center, government in every state, and then there is a third tier as well, known as local government. Local government in rural areas, known as Panchayati Raj institutions, dealt by 73rd Amendment, and local government in urban areas known as urban local bodies or municipalities or municipal corporations, that is dealt by 74th Amendment. First we will look at 73rd Amendment, then 74th Amendment, and we will look at these two concepts primarily from the prelims perspective. Lots and lots of facts. Unfortunately, you will have to mug up those facts, and towards the end we will analyze what is the impact of 73rd and 74th Amendment on India's polity. Were these amendments good, bad, or ugly? And what are the reforms that we can suggest? Sure, let's get started and look at Panchayati Raj institutions covered under Article 243 to 243 capital O. Again, you don't have to memorize these article numbers, just understand the concept. Panchayati Raj institutions and their introduction led to something known as rural local self-government. And this was the ideology of Mahatma Gandhi, wherein Mahatma Gandhi said India lives in the villages. And ultimately, to give democracy at the grassroots, to ensure that people are governing themselves at every village level. That's how this concept originated, Panchayati Raj institutions. But the story starts immediately after the independence, when two important schemes were implemented. One, community development program, of 1952, the National Extension Service, 1953. For example, during the British period, during the colonial period, during our struggle for independence, Mahatma Gandhi experimented something at Wardha and made this village self-sufficient. So the idea of Mahatma Gandhi was every village should become self-sufficient. So what Prime Minister Modi calls today Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is the idea of Mahatma Gandhi, self-reliant India. That means whatever is produced in a village, that gets consumed in this village as well. Whatever extra is there, we can export it to another village or another state. Whatever is the need of a particular village, all those needs should get satisfied by the resources that are present within that village. That means the idea is to make every village self-sufficient, self-reliant. And once every village becomes self-sufficient, self-reliant, India lives in the villages, India will become self-reliant, self-sufficient. For that, two schemes after the independence of the constitution were implemented. One was community development program. That means at village level, the community, the villagers will come together and initiate developmental activities in their particular villages, so that we can ensure that all these villages where we are experimenting, all these villages become self-sufficient, which basically means whether they need roads, whether they need infrastructure, for that money should be provided so that community can be involved in developing that village. And then it was thought that this community development program should be extended at the national level as well. Not just in few areas, not just in few villages, but at the national level as well. And that's how National Extension Service was established in 1953. So the idea is, after the independence, two programs, community development program, National Extension Service. The idea is to ensure that every village gets developed after taking inputs from the villagers themselves. What do you need? And ultimately, over a period of time, when all these villages will become self-sufficient, India will also become self-sufficient. But then we need to analyze also at the ground level whether these schemes are working or not. For that, a committee was set up headed by Balwantrai Ji Mehta. Balwantrai committee was set up. Mr. Mehta, can you please tell us how are these programs working on ground? Are these programs making any progress, making any impact on the lives of the people in the villages? These two programs, Community Development Program, National Extension Service. Balwantrai Ji Mehta said these programs are bound to fail. Said why? Bound to fail because this is a top-down approach. And what we need a bottom-up approach. What is this top-down approach? Center or a state getting to decide what is important in a village. Center or the state getting to decide what are the schemes that we will implement in a particular village or in all the villages. But it is the people of those villages who understand what are their problems. The problems in South India may be of infrastructure. The problem in North India may be of, let's say, social security. That means problems are different. In a country which is as diverse as India, which is as unique as India, you can't have center dictating terms to all the villages that this is how your development should look like. What we need a bottom up approach. Villagers should come together and say that this is what we need. And then they should implement this as well. If we need a school, what kind of school? If we need a dispensary, where do we need it? That this village should decide on its own and then implement as well. But right now, who is doing this? Center. Right now, who is doing this? State. Villages are not involved in the entire process of conceptualizing these schemes, then implementing these schemes, and ultimately, there is no accountability as well. Balwantrai Ji Mehta was asked, then what do you suggest? What is the solution? Balwantrai Ji Mehta said, what we need is democratic decentralization. So what is democratic decentralization? We have powers distributed between the center and the state. All those powers are under union list, state list, concurrent list. But all those powers which are under state list as well, state legislature should say that some of these powers we will share with the local governments, with the villagers. And that is how what we need to create a 3-tier Panchayati Raj system. That means there should be Panchayati Raj institution at a village level, at group of villages at the block level, at the district level. And people should be directly elected to these 3 tiers. There should be genuine transfer of power as well as genuine transfer of money. So that when I elect my representatives to my village, this village should also have, this institution should also have the power to spend the money. It should have the power to decide what schemes would run in my particular village because they are our representatives who work with us, who stay with us on a regular basis, on a daily basis. They know our problems, our concerns, and they know the best solution. Rather than center telling us what to do, it is these villagers whom we are electing on a regular basis, they should decide. All planning and developmental activities should be given to them. But obviously, they would not be experts in implementing these programs. For example, what my village needs is a school. What my village needs is a water pump. What my village needs maybe an irrigation facility. But these villagers cannot implement them on their own. Implementation part should be given to the deputy commissioner or the district magistrate or the collector. That individual should implement whatever is decided by the Panchayati Raj institutions. And at the same time, there should be genuine transfer of power. Give them power to decide all their developmental needs, requirements, and give them responsibility as well. So basically, whatever they should tell the district collector should listen to them and implement whatever is suggested by these Panchayati Raj institutions. What is the idea? The idea is to introduce something known as rural local self-government. In rural areas, at the local level, people should govern themselves. That means we can create these very little, smaller villages and make these villages some sort of republics. In a sense, you decide what you need. You decide what are your problems and what problems you want to prioritize. Whatever you recommend, that should be binding on the district collector. District collector will have to implement it. We will create a 3-tier structure where people will directly elect their representatives at the village level, then at the group of villages at the block level, then at the district level as well. So that look at the beauty and how we are going to transform our country. We have government at the central level for the entire country. Then we will have government at the state level for the entire state. Then we have representatives democratically elected at this district level, at the block level, at the village level. So we are taking democracy to grassroots. This is democratic decentralization, and this is what we need to create a 3-tier structure according to Balwant Rai Ji Mehta. But the government told Balwant Rai Ji Mehta, you may be absolutely right, but this is something that we can't implement. So why? This committee was set up by the central government to look into 2 schemes, Community Development Program and National Extension Service. Now, what this committee is recommending is democratic decentralization. That means you should create 3-tier structure at the local level and give them powers, give them responsibility, give them funds as well. But since this committee was set up by the central government said we can't do much on this matter. Why? Because in distribution of powers between center and the state, in state list, entry 7 talks about local government. What? In the distribution of powers, under 7th schedule of the constitution, we have state list. Entry 7 of the state list talks about local government, which basically means whatever you are recommending that parliament cannot do, that's something that state legislatures have to do. Because this subject, local government, is under the domain, under the prerogative of the states. We can't do much. But no issues. What we will do, we will call a meeting of National Development Council. National Development Council then was headed by the Prime Minister. Union ministers were part of it. Chief ministers of all states were part of it. So basically, it was a federal body. I told you yesterday, Planning Commission would create 5-year plans. But these 5-year plans would be approved by this National Development Council, headed by Prime Minister, includes union ministers, includes chief ministers of all states. So it is some sort of a federal body where even the states are represented. Now NDC is not existing because after NEET Planning Commission was dissolved, even NDC disappeared. When this committee meeting was announced by Prime Minister Nehru, Mr. Nehru asked all these chief ministers, this is what Balwant Rai Ji Mehta committee has recommended. They want genuine transfer of power to panchayats. They want to establish a Panchayati Raj structure in India, a 3-tier Panchayati Raj structure. Because we can no longer afford top-down approach. The approach has to be bottom-up. Some states accepted, some states did not. But overall, states acceded and accepted that we will set up Panchayati Raj institutions. But this meeting of National Development Council did not insist on a rigid pattern. Rigid pattern in the sense, West Bengal, for example, set up a four-tier structure. Tamil Nadu, for example, set up a two-tier structure. Rajasthan, for example, set up a three-tier structure. Rajasthan became the first state to implement the recommendations of the Balwantrai Ji Mehta Committee and ultimately establish Panchayati Raj institutions. In fact, the first Panchayati Raj institution was inaugurated on October 2nd, 1959, to coincide with the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, because ultimately this was Mahatma Gandhi's idea. This was established at Nagaur in Rajasthan, and then almost all the states implemented Panchayati Raj institutions, established Panchayati Raj institutions, but there were some states which created four-tier structure, some states created three-tier structure, some states created a two-tier structure. But long story short, Panchayati Raj institutions were established. October 2nd, 1959 was the first time at Nagaur in Rajasthan that Panchayati Raj institutions were established. But over a period of time, we also saw problems. What were these problems? We have center, we have state, we have Panchayati Raj institutions at the village. Listen to me carefully. At the village, at the block, at the district level. But who has created these Panchayati Raj institutions? States. Why? Because local government in the distribution of powers, it is under state list. What are the powers available with the center? Where is it mentioned? Constitution. What are the powers available with the states? Where are they mentioned? Constitution of India. But what should be the powers of these Panchayati Raj institutions? Who will decide? Not the constitution, but the states themselves. And what do you think? Will states give up their power and share this power with Panchayati Raj institutions? In Legislative Assembly of every state, there are MLAs who right now have all the powers at the state level to make law on law and order, land, agriculture, gambling, and then these representatives will become ministers as well. They will implement these laws. That means state government has the power, state legislature has the power. And why would state government and state legislature give up some power and share these powers with the representatives at the village, block, and the district level? They won't do that. Every 5 years, there has to be election at the center in Lok Sabha. There has to be election in the state. Why? Because it is mentioned in the constitution. You can't violate the constitution. But what about Panchayati Raj institutions? States will decide. There were few exceptions. Exceptions such as Kerala, exceptions such as West Bengal, exception to some extent Tamil Nadu and Karnataka as well, where Panchayati Raj institutions were working effectively. But in almost all other states in India, Panchayati Raj institutions were established but then dissolved very soon. Now that we have agreed at the meeting of the National Development Council, we will establish Panchayati Raj institutions. Let's establish. Once established, they were dissolved. No fresh election conducted. Even where elections were conducted, elections were delayed. Even where Panchayati Raj institutions were present, no genuine transfer of power, which means no responsibility. The idea was to establish Panchayati Raj institutions to make these institutions a symbol of rural, local self-government. That means villagers villagers at the village level, they should get decide what do we need, what sort of democracy do we want to have, what sort of practices do we want to have. But it didn't happen, and ultimately this proved to be a failure. This experiment with Panchayati Raj institutions proved to be a failure, despite the fact that we had some exceptions in the form of Kerala, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, to some extent, and Karnataka as well. Karnataka is and was considered a shining example of Panchayati Raj institutions. After this experiment, various committees were established. Various committees were established. You don't have to remember even the names of these committees or recommendations of these committees, but just understand the broad picture. Various committees were set up. Some committees were set up on elections, that how we can have periodic elections, regular elections to Panchayati Raj institutions, so that if there is a premature dissolution of Panchayat, when do we conduct the fresh election? Another committee was set up on finances, because unless and until you give money to Panchayati Raj institutions, how will they perform their duty? Some committees were set up, what should be the powers available with these Panchayati Raj institutions. Some committees were set up on statistics, some committees were set up on various other factors, but nothing changed. Problem remained the same. Then in 1977, when Janata Party came to power, Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister, a committee was set up specifically for Panchayati Raj institutions. And that committee was headed by Ashok Mehta, known as Ashok Mehta Committee. Balwant Rai Mehta was not set up for Panchayati Raj institutions. Balwant Rai Mehta was told, please review Community Development Program and National Extension Service. Balwant Rai Mehta recommended democratic decentralization. A three-tier structure should be created. Some states accepted, others created, but did not prove to be a successful experiment, barring few exceptions. After that, various committees were set up, but nothing changed on the ground. Position remained the same. Because why would legislature of a state empower Panchayati Raj institutions? Why would the state executive give up some of its powers and share these powers with local representatives at the local level? Then over a period of time, MLA would lose his influence on the people, and these villagers, these elected representatives at the village level, they will gain prominence. Why would an MLA want to do that and share his power with the representatives at the local level? It didn't happen. Ashok Mehta was asked, please recommend how can we better implement Panchayati Raj institutions. Ashok Mehta gave up close to 120, more than 120, 129 recommendations. These recommendations said, replace the three-tier structure with a two-tier structure. This three-tier structure is complicated. Have Panchayati Raj institution at the district level, have Panchayati Raj institution at the group of villages level known as Mandal Panchayat. Okay. Do you know why MLAs and state government, they don't want to share power with these Panchayati Raj institutions? Why? Because they don't want to empower outsiders. they can empower themselves. How can they empower themselves? Allow political parties to contest Panchayati Raj elections. So Congress, BJP, other regional political parties, they should set up candidates. They should be allowed to contest elections so that their representatives are there in the district level, are there at the Mandal Panchayat level. When their own representatives have captured power in these Panchayati Raj institutions, it would be easy for the political class to empower them with powers, responsibilities, funds as well. And we should have reservation of seats. There should be reservation for SCs, STs, women as well in Panchayati Raj institutions. That is how we can make these Panchayati Raj institutions genuine democratic institutions, by empowering the marginalized, the weaker sections of the society. Balwant Raji Mehta gave various other recommendations, but we don't have to memorize all the 120 odd recommendations. Broadly, these were the recommendations of Ashok Mehta. Based on the recommendations of Ashok Mehta committee, some states such as Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, implemented the recommendations of Ashok Mehta committee, but other states, they did not. They ignored the recommendations of Ashok Mehta and problems persisted. Problems continued. And after that, various other committees were set up. How can we better strengthen Panchayati Raj institutions? LM Singhvi committee recommended something important. Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. Rajiv Gandhi set up LM Singhvi committee. Mr. Singhvi, can you please tell us how can we better strengthen Panchayati Raj institutions? LM Singhvi committee said there is only one solution: give these Panchayati Raj institutions a constitutional status. Rajiv Gandhi asked, what do you mean by constitutional status? LM Singhvi committee said, mention Panchayati Raj institutions, mention municipalities. That means government at the local level in rural areas, government at the local level in urban areas. Mention it in the constitution itself. Rajiv Gandhi said, but what difference would it make? Because the constitution would say every 5-year election has to be conducted. So states cannot delay elections because that is mentioned in the constitution. If there is premature dissolution of panchayat, election should be conducted within 6 months. States cannot delay because it is mentioned in the constitution. What should be the powers of Panchayati Raj institutions? Should be mentioned in the constitution itself. That means some powers which are there with the states, those powers should be snatched and these powers should be given to Panchayati Raj institutions. Mention the role, responsibility, function of these Panchayati Raj institutions in the constitution itself, because no state can then violate the constitution. Rajiv Gandhi said, yes, you're absolutely right. Rajiv Gandhi's government introduced 2 constitutional amendment bills. In the parliament. And since Rajiv Gandhi had absolute majority on the floor of the Lok Sabha, these bills were passed by Lok Sabha. But these bills, there was opposition to these bills in Rajya Sabha. Why Rajya Sabha? Because Rajya Sabha is the Council of States. Rajya Sabha represents the interests of the states in the parliament, and the states protested. Why? How dare you, parliament as an institution, how can you make a law which is under state list? Local government is an entity, is an entry, is a subject mentioned under state list. So if at all law is to be passed on local government, that can be passed only by the state legislature, not by the parliament. So how can parliament enact a law on local government? This is not acceptable to us. You are snatching our powers. You are violating the principle of federalism. This is not acceptable to us. Ultimately, this bill could not be passed in Rajya Sabha. Then came VP Singh. VP Singh became the Prime Minister. VP Singh did the same thing as was done by Pandit Nehru. VP Singh asked NDC, let's meet. VP Singh is the Prime Minister. National Development Council meeting now takes place, which includes Prime Minister, Union Ministers, all the Chief Ministers. And now the Prime Minister is explaining the logic. See, we need these Panchayati Raj institutions. You know, because this is the dream of Mahatma Gandhi. In fact, Article 40 of the Constitution imposes a duty on us. It's a directive principle of the state policy. The state shall organize village panchayats and empower them with powers to enable them to function as units of rural local self-government. This is a directive principle mentioned under Article 40. And it is the duty of the state to implement these DPSPs. We have to implement this. And you know what has been happening. In some states, I won't name the states, in some states, elections have not been conducted for the last 10 years. In some states, elections are conducted, panchayats are established, but then dissolved. Genuinely, you are not transferring power to them. So these are hapless people in Panchayati Raj institutions who have been elected by the people, but they have no power, no responsibility, no money to implement their schemes and policies. And at this meeting, National Development Council meeting, the states accepted the way forward and said, let's give a constitutional status to Panchayati Raj institutions. There were some concerns of the states which were addressed, which I will tell you. And ultimately, it was sorted that now we will have a constitutional status to Panchayati Raj institutions. But then VP Singh lost his power, resigned. And after the elections, PV Narasimha Rao became the Prime Minister. PV Narasimha Rao said, Rajiv Gandhi tried to do this, there was no consensus. VP Singh tried to do this, there was consensus, but then there was no VP Singh. Now what I will do, I will take it forward. Now that you have accepted, let's take it forward. Let's introduce two constitutional amendment bills in the parliament. One which became 73rd Amendment, other which became 74th Amendment. 73rd Amendment dealt with Panchayati Raj institutions, that means in rural areas. 74th Amendment dealt with urban local bodies at the urban areas. But what about the concerns of the states? When the 73rd Amendment was passed, this law passed by the parliament says that Panchayati Raj institutions shall be established in every state based on the law passed by the state legislature. This is the most important point. Listen to me carefully. In the distribution of powers, local government comes under state list. That means if at all there is to be a law to be enacted on local government, this law can be passed by the state legislature. And now 73rd Amendment is saying the same thing. Panchayati Raj institutions are to be established in the entire country based on the laws passed by the state legislature. So if we have panchayats in Karnataka, for that the law should be passed by the Karnataka Legislative Assembly. If they have Panchayati Raj institutions in UP or Madhya Pradesh or Chhattisgarh, the laws should be passed by the respective legislatures. They have to enact a law, and through this law, you have to create Panchayati Raj institutions. But whenever you will pass a law, you will have to look at 73rd Amendment. And in the 73rd Amendment, there are some compulsory provisions. And there are some optional or voluntary provisions. The 73rd Amendment is like the model law. State legislature, whenever you will pass a law, which you have now agreed that you will pass a law, all the state legislatures, when they will pass a law to establish Panchayati Raj institutions, they will have to look at 73rd Amendment. And in their laws, they have to compulsorily include these provisions. Because we have agreed at the NDC meeting that we will abide by this. Your problem was you don't want Parliament to pass a law on state list because you think it violates federalism. Fair enough, we will not pass a law. But we will give you a directive, which you will agree, that this is the model law. Whenever all the states will pass a law on panchayats, you will have to abide by this model law, which is 73rd Amendment. Within this amendment, there are compulsory provisions, there are voluntary provisions. When Karnataka legislature will enact a law to establish Panchayati Raj institutions in Karnataka, necessarily Karnataka legislature will have to include these provisions. But it is optional for Karnataka legislature. Whether you like it, then you can include these voluntary provisions as well. We would encourage you, please include all these provisions, compulsory as well as voluntary. But compulsory you have to, voluntary you may not. But we would encourage you, even these voluntary provisions you should include. And it is this constitutional status which was given to Panchayati Raj institutions in 1992, which has transitioned our democracy from a representative democracy to a participative democracy. Previously, people will elect their representatives to Lok Sabha to represent them in Lok Sabha. People will elect their representatives to Legislative Assembly to represent them in Legislative Assembly. Now people are coming together and deciding what is good for our village. That means they are participating together, deepening democracy. Democracy is now reaching the grassroots. So Panchayati Raj institutions in all the states are not created by the law passed by the parliament. Panchayati Raj institutions are created in every state based on the law passed by the state legislature. But when the state legislature will enact a law, you will find in every state these provisions are mentioned. In every state, no deviation. Every state, these provisions are there. But in some states, in other states, whether these optional voluntary provisions would be there or not, that varies from state to state. We will have to understand from the examination perspective, what are these compulsory provisions? What are these voluntary provisions? And compulsory provision is that throughout the country, in every state, we need Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha has to be created. It's a compulsory provision. That is why you will find Gram Sabhas everywhere. What is Gram Sabha? At every village. Who is part of this Gram Sabha? All registered voters. In all the villages in India, without any exception, you will find a Gram Sabha. Who will be part of this Gram Sabha? All those who are the registered voter of that village, all those who are above the age of 18 and are registered as voters in that village. That is why we see different list electoral rolls. For Panchayati Raj elections, there is a different electoral role. For Lok Sabha election, there is a different electoral role. Now we are talking about if your name is registered as a voter in this village, if you are above 18, you are part of Gram Sabha. Necessarily, it has to be constituted in every village, in every state. It's a compulsory provision. Imagine it this way. Gram Sabha, a body which includes all the registered voters together. This is like direct democracy that used to happen in ancient Rome, where all the people together would decide the policies for their particular state. But what should be the power and responsibility of this Gram Sabha? That state legislature will provide. That means constituting Gram Sabha is a compulsory provision. All the registered voters of that village should be part of Gram Sabha. It's a compulsory provision. But then what should be the power of this Gram Sabha? That state legislature will decide. And it varies from state to state. Compulsorily, you have to set up Gram Sabha. Compulsorily, all the registered voters of that village should be part of Gram Sabha. But what should be the power function of this Gram Sabha? That state legislature in its law will provide. And then we have to have a three-tier structure. What is this three-tier structure? We should have panchayat at the village level, at the intermediate level, at the district level. Gram Sabha is at every village. If these are villages, at every village there will be a Gram Sabha, including members who are the voters of that village. That means there is no election to Gram Sabha. All the registered voters of that village automatically become part of Gram Sabha. But then we have to create a three-tier structure. One at every village, then at intermediate level, then at the district level. People will directly elect their representatives to a village. People will directly elect their representatives to intermediate level, block level, group of villages. People will directly elect their representatives at the district level. This is a compulsory provision. You have to implement this. All states will have to implement this. But there is an exception. This intermediate level need not be created in a state where the population is less than 20 lakhs. If we have bigger states where the population is more than 20 lakhs, then for these states, necessarily, you have to establish a three-tier structure. At the village level, at the group of villages, block level, intermediate level, at the district level. But this block level is not required in a state where the population is less than 20 lakhs. Done? And in all these three tiers, there should be direct election. Direct election to all the three tiers. But for example, we have panchayat at the village level, panchayat at the intermediate level, panchayat at the district level. Members are to be directly elected. But who will be the chairperson of this village? This village is known as Gram Panchayat. intermediate level known as Panchayat Samiti. Block level. District level, it is known as Zilla Parishad. Gram Panchayat and Gram Sabha is different. Gram Sabha is all the registered voters are part of Gram Sabha. Done. But then these voters will elect their representatives to Gram Panchayat. Then these voters will elect their representatives at the intermediate level, Panchayat Samiti. Then all the people at the district level will come together to vote for their representatives at the Zilla Parishad. All these members will be directly elected. But who will be the chairperson of this Gram Panchayat? Who will be the chairperson of Panchayat Samiti? Who will be the chairperson of Zilla Parishad? 73rd Amendment says chairperson of Panchayat Samiti and Zilla Parishad should be indirectly elected. That means once you have elected your representatives to Panchayat Samiti, one amongst this member can be elected as the chairman. That means people will not directly elect the chairman. People will elect their representatives. These representatives will elect the chairperson of that intermediate council, Panchayat Samiti. Who will be the chairperson or who will be the head of the Zilla Parishad? In a sense, on the election side, who will be heading the Zilla Parishad? Who will be the chairperson of the Zilla Parishad on the election side? That will also be indirectly elected. So all these representatives elected at the Zilla Parishad, one amongst them will be the head of this Zilla Parishad, chairperson of the Zilla Parishad. And who is going to be the chairperson of the Gram Panchayat? That state legislature shall decide. We have given it to the states. You decide who is going to be the chairperson of the Gram Panchayat. When we say you decide, that means you tell us in your law whether this head of the Gram Panchayat, Sarpanch for example, whether this person should be directly elected by the people or indirectly elected from the representatives of the Gram Panchayat. But on the implementation side, whatever decisions are taken by this Gram Panchayat, who will implement this decision? Who will put that decision into task? Panchayat Sachiv, secretary. If you have watched that beautiful series on Amazon Prime, Panchayat, Jitu Bhaiya was the Panchayat Sachiv, the secretary. Who was the head of this Panchayat? Sarpanch, Neena Gupta. Although the husband was taking all the decisions, which we will discuss later, but Neena Gupta was the Sarpanch. Whatever decisions are to be taken by this Gram Panchayat will be implemented by the Panchayat Sachiv, secretary. At the intermediate level, who will be implementing the decisions? BDO, Block Development Officer. And if you will clear State Public Service Commission examination, almost the first posting is that of a BDO in a village, which basically means you will be implementing the decisions taken by Panchayat Samiti. And on the executive side, who will implement the decisions taken by the Zilla Parishad? The district collector. Clear? So this Panchayati Raj institution has to be created in all states based on 73rd Amendment. But who will establish Panchayati Raj institutions? State legislature will enact a law, and through this law, Panchayati Raj institutions will be created. But while they are enacting their laws, the states will have to compulsorily include some provisions, but it is optional, voluntary for them to include these provisions. Which are these compulsory and voluntary provisions? First, every state will have to establish the Gram Sabha. At every village, all the registered voters will be part of Gram Sabha. What will be the role of this Gram Sabha? That state legislature will decide. For example, in some states, or in most of the states, the role of this Gram Sabha is minor forest produce. And this has been a question asked in one of the prelims examination as well. For example, in a village which is closer to the forest area, and as community members, you can go to the forest, you can collect the minor forest produce. For example, some medicinal plants, for example, some vegetables, exotic vegetables, for example, some twigs which have fallen from the trees. All this is part of minor forest produce. Now, what will happen to this minor forest produce? Will the state government decide what will happen to this? Whether we will auction it or sell it? Will the state executive decide? Will the state legislature decide? No, Gram Sabha will decide. So Gram Sabha will have the ultimate power on this minor forest produce. We will decide what will happen to this. Clear? It is necessary to set up Gram Sabha. It is also necessary to set up a 3-tier structure. Panchayat in every village, intermediate level, block level, at the district level. Is it necessary? Yes. But it is not necessary for a state where the population is less than 20 lakhs. Then you don't have to set up intermediate level. You can only set up village and the district level. In all these 3 tiers, people will directly elect their representatives. That means people will directly elect their representatives to Gram Panchayat, to Panchayat Samiti, to Zilla Parishad. But who is going to be the chairperson of all these 3 tiers? The chairperson of the Gram Panchayat, state legislature will decide how this chairperson is to be elected, how this sarpanch is to be elected, whether direct election or indirect election. That state legislature will decide. But who is going to be the chairperson of the Panchayat Samiti and Zilla Parishad? Has to be indirect election. This chairperson has to be indirectly elected. That means all those people who have been elected, they will decide that one amongst us will be the chairperson of Panchayat Samiti, will be the chairperson of the Zilla Parishad. And in all these states, in all these 3 tiers, there is a compulsory provision. You have to reserve seats. Seats for whom? For SCs and STs. What is the percentage of reservation? In proportion to their population. There is a village. In that village, we have to set up Gram Panchayat. In Gram Panchayat, we have 10 seats, for example. We have to elect all the 10 representatives to Gram Panchayat. For that, we have to provide reservation to SCs and STs. What is the percentage? In proportion to their population. Which means if the population of SCs and STs is 0 in this village, there won't be any reservation because there is nobody who is from SC or ST community for whom we may want to reserve seats. If the population is 70%, 70% seats will be reserved. If the population is 100%, 100% seats will be reserved. That means in proportion to your population, seats will be reserved for you if you are from SC or ST community. There should be reservation of seats for women. How much? Not less than 1/3 seats shall be reserved for women. Not less than 1/3. Can it be more than 1/3? Yes. Can it be 50%? Yes. Bihar, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, various states, they have 50% reservation for women in Panchayati Raj institutions. Is it unconstitutional? No. Why? Because Constitution says compulsorily you have to reserve seats not less than 1/3 to that of the women. But there are some voluntary provisions as well. Voluntary provisions. MLAs or MPs? Can MLAs or MPs also be given a representation in Panchayati Raj institutions? In a sense, can we make MLA and the member of parliament of Lok Sabha from that particular area also part of the Panchayat Samiti or Zilla Parishad? That is a voluntary provision. If you want, you may provide it. Can we provide reservation to OBCs, other backward classes? That is for the state legislature to decide. If you want to provide them reservation, you can provide them. That means even in the reservation of seats, which is not only seats, regular seats, but also the seats, vacancies in the office of chairpersons. If there are 30 chairperson offices at the village level, at the district level, at the intermediate level, for all these chairperson positions also, seats should be reserved for SCs and STs in proportion to their population. Not less than 1/3 of these chairpersons should be women. But what about members of legislative assemblies or Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha or OBCs? Should they be also provided reservation or representation? That's for the state legislature to decide. That's a voluntary provision. If you want, you may go ahead. If you don't want, nobody's going to force you. Not just that, the duration of the panchayat is 5 years. In case of premature dissolution, election or re-election should happen within 6 months. And panchayats reconstituted after the premature dissolution remain for the remainder of the term. What is the term of panchayat? 5 years. Gram panchayat, all the voters at the village level, they elect their representatives. Now they are part of gram panchayat. What is the term of this gram panchayat at a village? 5 years. But even before 5 years, this panchayat may be dissolved. Why dissolved? Maybe all these members died. We have to have re-election. Or maybe some of them or most of them were disqualified. We will discuss what are the grounds for disqualification. Whatever may be the reason, this panchayat has been dissolved. Now, if it has been dissolved, we have to have a re-election. Previously, re-election was not happening because it was not mentioned in the constitution. Now, re-election has to happen within 6 months. Mentioned in the constitution, necessary, compulsory. And if this panchayat is reconstituted, it will remain in office for the remainder of the term, not for the full 5 years. Sir, what does that mean? Just like at Lok Sabha, just like at Legislative Assembly. If, for example, I am a member of Lok Sabha belonging to constituency X, after 2 years I was disqualified, or after 2 years I'm dead, or after 2 years I've resigned, that means there is a vacancy. That means fresh election will be conducted. That means once a new candidate would be elected, will this candidate have a 5-year term, or will this candidate remain in office for the remainder of the term, whatever else is left after subtracting my 2 years? The remainder of the term. Similarly, panchayat as well. Once this panchayat is dissolved, within 6 months you have to organize fresh election. and a newly constituted panchayat, which has been elected after the premature dissolution, will remain in office for the remainder of the term, not for the full 5 years, because it's like some sort of a by-election. Similarly, qualifications as well as disqualifications are mentioned in the law. 73rd Amendment says, if you are qualified to become an MLA, you are qualified to become a member of Panchayati Raj institutions as well. And same disqualifications as they exist for MLAs, same exist for Panchayati Raj institutions as well. Except for an MLA, minimum age to become an MLA is 25, but for Panchayati Raj institutions, it is 21. Further, additional grounds of qualification and disqualification shall be prescribed by state legislature by law. Gram Sabha is constituted, 3-tier structure is created, reservation of seats is done, but who is qualified to contest elections? Who is disqualified to contest elections? 73rd Amendment says, if you are qualified to contest legislative assembly election, you are qualified to contest Panchayati Raj election as well. Except age. Minimum age to become an MLA is 25, but minimum age to become a member of Panchayati Raj institution is 21. Apart from that, if you are qualified to become an MLA, you are qualified to become a member of Panchayati Raj institution. But more qualifications can be prescribed by the state legislature by law. Similarly, if you are disqualified from continuing as the member of the Legislative Assembly as an MLA, you are disqualified from Panchayati Raj institutions as well. Same grounds. Change in the nature of citizenship, adjust, insolvent, so on and so forth. But state legislature has a voluntary provision. You may prescribe additional grounds for disqualification, additional grounds for qualification as well. And some states have done that. Some states such as Haryana, Rajasthan, they have prescribed educational qualifications. There are some states which have said no functional toilet, you are disqualified. What does the Constitution say under 73rd Amendment? Who is qualified, who is disqualified to contest Panchayati Raj election? 73rd Amendment says if you are qualified to contest MLA election, you are qualified to contest Panchayati Raj election as well, minus the age. If you are disqualified from continuing as an MLA, you are disqualified from Panchayati Raj institution as well. But then the state legislature, you have an option. That's a voluntary provision. You may want to add more qualifications. You may want to add more disqualifications. You are free to do that. And an example of that, some states have said, if a member of the legislature, if a member who wants to contest election, Panchayati Raj election, but at his or her home there is no functional toilet, that means these people are defecating in the open. That means they are against the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan launched by Mr. Modi. As such, they are disqualified from contesting the elections. So anybody who wants to contest Panchayati Raj elections, first get a functional toilet at home. If not, then you can't contest elections. Or if you have a functional toilet right now, after your election, you don't have a functional toilet, ultimately you are disqualified from continuing as the member of Panchayati Raj institution. Some states have gone a step further and prescribed educational qualification. Educational qualification in the sense, if you are male belonging to general category, you should be 10th pass. If you are a female belonging to a reserved category, you should be 5th pass. Others can be 8th pass. Others may also be illiterate. Educational qualification is also prescribed. What do you think? Prescribing educational qualification, is it good, bad, or ugly? Good, 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 more than good. Good, 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 good. Everybody says good. Okay. Who has prescribed educational qualification as a qualification to contest Panchayati Raj elections? State legislature? Who are the members of the state legislature? MLAs? Is such a qualification present for MLAs that you should be educated, you should have this educational qualification? No. That means this reeks of hypocrisy. I am an MLA. There is no requirement, educational requirement for me that I should be 10th pass or a graduate or a postgraduate. But I am now making a law. I am illiterate. I am not educated. I am now making a law. If you want to contest election to Panchayati Raj institution, you should be a matriculate. This speaks of hypocrisy. But not just this. Why are people coming out of schools and not completing their education? Why are students, those who are not, why do they not enroll in the school? If these are the people, for example, 1 lakh people who are now disqualified from contesting Panchayati Raj elections because they are not 10th standard pass, they are not 5th pass, they are not 8th pass. Whose failure is it? Mine. I am the state. I failed to provide them educational opportunities. I failed to establish schools in their neighborhood so that they don't have to travel hundreds of kilometers to get access to good quality education. It's my failure. And now I'm saying, since it is my failure, I am going to punish you. Why are you not educated? State is saying, why are you not educated? If you're not educated, you're punished, you're disqualified. Why doesn't the state punish itself for failing to provide educational opportunities? To become a politician, you don't need to be literate. To become a politician, to cater to the interest of the people, you should have empathy. And empathy is not something that is taught in schools or colleges or universities. You may be educated, you may be a graduate or a postgraduate from an Ivy college. But even then, you may be an hypocrite. You may be chauvinist. You may be misogynist. You may be horrible individual. You'd have scant disregard to the aspirations of the people, to the interest of the people. Aruna Roy, she was an IAS officer. Later on, she resigned and she started a beautiful campaign with Nikhil Dey in Rajasthan. And their campaign led to the enactment of Right to Information Act in Rajasthan. Aruna Roy, she said, I got to know more about democracy from illiterate people in Rajasthan. They may be illiterate, they may not be able to read and write, but they are educated. They understand the difference between good and bad. So you don't need educational qualification for representing the people of your village. Just like you don't need educational qualification to represent people in legislature or in parliament. Prescribing educational qualification is elitist concept. And you're basically punishing people for the failure of the state. But there are some good things about educational qualification as well. There are some bad things as well. But qualifications and disqualifications, who will prescribe? One, if you're qualified to contest legislative assembly election, if you're disqualified from contesting legislative assembly election, that is the same qualification, disqualification for panchayat. But additional grounds of qualification, additional grounds of disqualification can be prescribed by the state legislature by law. That is the voluntary provision. But who will organize this election? This election will be conducted, organized by a single member state election commission, which will be headed by state election commissioner. State election commissioner is appointed by governor of that state and can be removed in the like manner and on the like grounds as the judge of the High Court. His conditions of service shall be determined by the state. Who conducts elections to president, vice president, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assembly, state legislative council? Election Commission of India. But elections to Panchayati Raj institutions is conducted by a separate body. This body is also constitutional body. Why constitutional body? Because it is mentioned in the constitution. And this constitutional body is known as State Election Commission. It's a single member body. That means we will have a state election commissioner. Who is the state election commissioner? Appointed by the governor on the aid and advice of the chief minister. But if he is appointed by the governor, he can be removed, not by the governor, but he can be removed by the president. Why? Because he can be removed just like the judge of a high court is removed. In the same manner, on the same grounds. How is the judge of the high court removed? On the grounds of proved misbehavior or incapacity. These are the grounds on the basis of which the judge is removed. We will discuss it today. On what basis, in what manner is the judge of a high court removed? Both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha will pass a resolution by special majority. And then this resolution is binding on the president. The president has to remove that judge. So the judge of a high court is removed by the president based on the resolution passed by both houses of the parliament by special majority. That means in the same manner, you can remove the state election commissioner as well. State election commissioner appointed by the governor on the advice of the chief minister, but can be removed by the president, just like the judge of a high court is removed. But his other conditions of service, what should be the salary of the state election commission? What will be the tenure of the state election commission? What will be the qualification of the state election commission? That will be decided by the state. But something happened. Where? Andhra. In Andhra Pradesh, we have the chief minister and we have the state election commissioner. State election commissioner appointed by governor on the advice of chief minister. Very good. Conditions of service. The term of CEC is 5 years. Varies from state to state because that is decided by the state legislature. And Andhra legislature has decided that the term of the state election commissioner is 5 years. Very good. Urban local body elections, panchayat elections were to be conducted in Andhra Pradesh. COVID-19 lockdown happened. The chief minister is asking the state election commission, please hold elections. State election commissioner is saying no. Why? Because the time is not ripe for elections. Why? Because we are witnessing COVID-19. Why? Because if we organize elections, the pandemic would spread. The virus would spread. Please hold elections. State election commissioner says, no, I can't hold elections. Government is furious. Chief minister is now advising the governor. That governor, what you do? Promulgate an ordinance. Through this ordinance, what you will say? That the term of the CEC is now 3 years. Because this state election commissioner has already completed 3 years, but his term was 5 years. Now, when you have already completed 3 years, we will issue an ordinance because we can't have a legislative assembly session because of COVID-19. Governor, you promulgate an ordinance, and through this ordinance, you say that the term of the CEC has been reduced from 5 years to 3 years, which means state election commissioner is gone because he has completed 3-year term. That means now a new state election commissioner will be appointed, and a new state election commissioner will accept that, yes, let's hold elections. State election commissioner approached the High Court, later on the Supreme Court as well, and ultimately the court said this ordinance is unconstitutional. Unconstitutional, why? 2 reasons. Reason number 1, the terms of conditions cannot be varied to their disadvantage after appointment. If I am appointed for a 5-year term, after 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, you can't say that now your term has been reduced from 5 years to 3 years. Why you can't say that? Because that will not enable me to function independently. without any fair, without any favor. Why should there be a fixed tenure to an election commissioner? If there is no fixed tenure, I will always have this at the back of my mind. If I will not support the government, they will remove me. So maybe I will give them some benefit. Maybe I will tell them that you violate model code of conduct, but I am not going to take any action against you. You bring in voters from different constituencies to vote in your constituency, I won't take any action. Because if I take any action, they can remove me. That means then free and fair election is not possible. Free and fair election is possible if this election commissioner has security of his tenure. Once appointed, your conditions of service, your salary, your term cannot be varied to your disadvantage. And if you were appointed for a 5-year term, midway during your term, your service cannot be varied to your disadvantage. The terms of your office cannot be varied to your disadvantage. And your term has been reduced from 5 to 3 years, unconstitutional. And second, come here. Sir, what? Do you know how do we ensure independence of State Election Commission? No. State Election Commissioner is appointed by the governor on the advice of the Chief Minister. But then we also have to see that you won't favor the Chief Minister. You won't favor the ruling party. If you do that, we will remove you. Not the governor, on the advice of the Chief Minister. President, on the recommendations of the Parliament, will remove you. Just like the judge of the High Court is removed. And what you did through this ordinance, you got the governor to remove CEC, State Election Commission, which governor does not have the power. Through this ordinance, you cannot remove the State Election Commissioner because you're basically removing him by reducing his term. If he is to be removed or she is to be removed, that can be done only by the president on the recommendations of the both houses of the parliament, just like the judge of a high court is removed. And at the same time, what are the powers and the functions? Constitution says under 73rd Amendment, the state legislature may transfer some of these powers, delegate some of these powers to the Panchayati Raj institutions. Panchayati Raj institutions are to be established. Gram Sabha has to be established. A 3-tier structure has to be established. Direct election has to be conducted. A reservation has to be provided. Qualification, disqualification done. Who will organize the election? State Election Commission. But what will be the role of these bodies? What will be the responsibility and functions of these Panchayati Raj institutions? That state legislature will decide. From what? State legislature will decide from the 11th schedule of the Constitution. If the state legislature wants, it may. What it can do, either give all these subjects to Panchayati Raj institutions or some of these subjects to Panchayati Raj institutions. And how many subjects do we have? 29. That means basically what will be the role, function of Panchayati Raj institutions? If the state legislature wants, the role and the function can be agriculture. Function can be land improvement. Implementing land reforms will be the job of the Panchayati Raj institution. Soil conservation, irrigation, water management, animal husbandry, khadi, roads, poverty elevation programs, libraries, cultural activities, drinking water, fuel, fodder. All these are the responsibilities of Panchayati Raj institutions, provided the state legislature may give some of these powers or all of these powers or none of these powers to Panchayati Raj institutions. That is the power. What are the subjects? Just like we have Schedule 7, which talks about subjects mentioned in the union list. That means power is with the parliament to make laws on these union lists. Power is with the state legislature to make a law on state list. Similarly, power is with the Panchayati Raj institutions to decide on all these matters whether it is animal husbandry, whether it is roads, whether it is bridges, whether it is poverty elevation program, whether it is education, whether it is minor irrigation, whether it is animal husbandry, whether it is fodder and fuel, whether it is library, whether it is cultural activity. 29 items are mentioned in 11th schedule of the Constitution, provided the state legislature decides. That's an optional provision. Not just this, important is not only to give them functions, important also is to give them funds. Funds in the form of another constitutional body is set up known as State Finance Commission. Every 5 years, governor of a state will set up a State Finance Commission. What will be the role of the State Finance Commission? Listen to me carefully. States, they also impose taxes. Just like center imposes taxes. Income tax, corporate tax, that's the tax imposed by the center. Where is this money going? Money is going to the Consolidated Fund of India. Clear? States also impose tax. For example, tax on land, agriculture. Who can impose? States. Similarly, we have tobacco, tax on tobacco, tax on liquor, tax on petrol, diesel. All this tax is imposed by the state. State GST is imposed by the state. Where is this tax going? Consolidated Fund of the state. Clear? Now we have a lot of money in the Consolidated Fund of the state. What percentage of this money will be shared with Panchayati Raj institutions? That we have to decide. And who will decide that? A constitutional body set up every 5 years by the governor, known as State Finance Commission. That means what is the percentage of the money that is deposited in the Consolidated Fund of the state? What proportion of this money will be given to Panchayati Raj institutions? Because without money, what will be their responsibility? How will they perform? You have to make them self-sufficient. Because what does Article 40 say? The state shall strive, the state shall endeavor, the state shall establish Panchayati Raj institutions in rural areas and empower them with powers to enable them to function as units of rural, local self-government. That means you are governing yourself. How can you govern yourself if you have no money, if you have no funds? Funds will be given to you from Consolidated Fund of the state. That will be role number 1 of State Finance Commission. Role number 2, grants in aid. For these Panchayati Raj institutions, we should grant them money for various scholarships, for setting up khadi industries, for setting up libraries, for setting up ponds, for specific purposes. They should be given some grants. That means some money should be given to them to aid them to perform their tasks. Who will decide that? State Finance Commission. And these Panchayati Raj institutions, they can also impose taxes, tolls, prescribe fines. That is also the responsibility of Panchayati Raj institutions. So Panchayati Raj institutions will be empowered by the state. that you can levy some of the taxes, you can levy some of the tolls, you can impose certain fines, and through this you can also generate funds, and through these funds you can become units of rural local self government. But there are some areas where panchayati raj institutions are absent, where we don't see panchayati raj institutions. For example, those areas under Schedule 6 of the Constitution. Why? Because they don't need it. They already have a district council, which is much more powerful than a panchayati raj institution. So why would they need another structure? It would be duplication. That's why they don't need it. Similarly, in Gorkhaland, they have their own local government where panchayati raj institutions are not required, because again it will be duplication. Similarly, in areas such as Gorkhaland, Schedule 6 areas, there are some areas in Nagaland as well where we don't see panchayati raj institutions. But what about Schedule 5 areas? Are panchayati raj institutions present there? Yes. For that we have a law known as PISA. Panchayats Extension to Scheduled Areas Act. This law was passed in 1996, a very important law, but this law we will discuss in great detail in social justice. So whether panchayati raj institutions are to be established in all the states, yes, but there are some states such as Nagaland where we don't see panchayati raj institutions because of various reasons, because they have a different status. In Gorkhaland, there already is a Gorkha council. That is why we don't need a panchayati raj institution. In Schedule 6 areas, we have district councils. We don't need panchayati raj institutions. Your Lakshmikant may also say about Jammu and Kashmir, but Jammu and Kashmir also has panchayati raj institutions. But are these institutions present in Schedule 5 areas? Yes. And it is because of this PISA, Panchayat Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996, that panchayats have been extended to Schedule 5 areas as well. And this we will discuss in great detail in social justice. Now let's look at urban local bodies. I told you previously when we initiated a discussion, first we will look at panchayats and municipalities, 73rd and 74th, from the prelims perspective. Once that is done, then we will analyze 73rd and 74th amendment from the mains perspective. And then this topic is over. Now let's look at 74th amendment, because we dealt with 73rd amendment. Just like we have local government in rural areas known as panchayats covered by 73rd amendment, we have local government in urban areas known as urban local government covered under 74th Amendment Act. And for that, we have to go back to history. I think it was 1687 for the first time when a municipality was set up in India. What was that city where first municipality was set up in 1687? Can anybody tell me? Madras, Calcutta, again in 1726. It is considered to be Lord Ripon who played a very important role in empowering these local bodies in urban areas, because there was British Parliament making laws for the entire country. Then over a period of time, we saw that despite the fact that British Parliament was making law for India, we had some form of government in urban areas. known as municipalities or municipal corporations, and which were provided funds by Lord Ripon, provided funds by the Governor General or Viceroy, as he was called. That is why we say Lord Ripon is the father of urban local government or municipal government in India. And after the independence of India, we saw urban local government in different states in the form of municipalities and the form of municipal corporations. There were some notable examples such as Bombay, such as Delhi, such as Madras, such as Calcutta, where these urban local bodies were functioning well. Perhaps because they had a history, a long history from where they were operational. But in other states, it was an abysmal situation. And again, just like we needed to provide constitutional status to panchayats, we needed to provide constitutional status to urban local bodies as well. And that is how 74th Amendment happened. When we look at urban areas in India, we see that there are three broad types of municipalities or urban local bodies. Municipal corporation, which is for a large city, a big city. Then we have municipal council, which is for a smaller city. Then we have Nagar Panchayat. That means an area which is not yet a city, but fast transitioning into one. What is the difference or what is the definition of a city? How is it different from a village? We can call an area within the territory of India a city if the predominant economic occupation is non-agricultural. The predominant economic activity of a village is agriculture. The predominant economic activity in a village is non-agricultural. Lots of manufacturing, lots of services. We say city is also a place of a chance. One lottery, hit or miss, can revolutionize your day, can change your life. That is why we say city is a land of opportunities. In city, the predominant economic activity is non-agricultural. And to administer a city, you require a different expertise altogether because the cities are facing with different kinds of problems. Pollution is one problem. Population growth is one problem, another problem. Density of population is another problem. The sewage treatment is another problem. How do you dispose your garbage? That is another problem. Traffic is another problem. Right now, if I have to come to the studio, which is in Bangalore, from my house, it takes me 5 minutes early in the morning, 5:30 a.m. But if I travel at the peak office time, which is let's say 9:30, 10, do you know how much time does it take? Sometimes it takes me 1 hour, 20 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. Sometimes I don't go. Traffic is an issue. So to administer an urban area comes up with a lot of challenges. That is why we need experts who have dealt with these problems. They should also be part of the decision making to make cities livable. Because unfortunately, there are some cities in India which are becoming unlivable. For example, Delhi, the capital of India, is unlivable. Although it is not a good comparison to make, and you should also refrain from this comparison, where people compare that staying in Delhi is like you are smoking 18 cigarettes a day. This is the comparison that we should never make. You're basically encouraging smoking. You're basically telling me that so what, you should smoke even if it destroys your lungs. But look at in Delhi, you are breathing the air which is polluted, and it is as good as you have smoked 18 cigarettes a day. That's not the comparison. This way you're encouraging smoking, or you are belittling the impact of pollution on the lives of young vulnerable sections of the society. But be that as it may, for cities we also needed constitutional status, and that was provided by 74th amendment. How? Elections take place. Let's say we are in Mumbai. We are in Mumbai, and we have a BBMP, municipal corporation in Mumbai. Mumbai is a big city. For that, we have a municipal corporation. Elections will take place. How elections will take place? Because every state will have to create wards. Just like for the entire country, the country is divided into 543 constituencies. For the entire state, for example, UP is divided into 403 assembly constituencies. Similarly, the entire city of Mumbai is divided into constituencies, and these constituencies are known as wards. So wards are to be constituted. But now, persons having special knowledge or experience in municipal administration, can they also be part of these wards? That state legislature will decide. Because to these wards, people will directly elect their councillors. Representatives will be directly elected by the people, and they will be part of these wards. But can we also include people who have special knowledge of municipal administration, who have expertise of running a city, maybe who are experts in pollution control, maybe who are experts of waste control management, maybe who are experts of traffic management? Can we also include them? Because they will be needed, they will be required to make better policies for urban administration. We won't give them right to vote because they are not elected by the people. But can they also participate in the meetings? That's for the state legislature to decide. Just like we have nominated MPs to Rajya Sabha who have done well in the field of art, literature, science, social service, so that they are also part of making laws in the similar fashion, experts. Members of Lok Sabha State Assembly, can they also be included in these wards? That state legislature will decide. Members of Rajya Sabha and State Legislative Council, can they also be made part of these committees, wards? That state legislature will decide. And then group of wards put together becomes a wards committee. For example, Karnataka in 2020 said all cities in Karnataka, all urban local bodies in Karnataka will have wards committee as well. That means group of wards put together becomes a ward committee. Just like group of villages put together becomes a block. In the similar fashion, we should have a wards committee as well. When we look at urban local bodies, let's look at some of the types. What are these types? Listen to me carefully. This is the BCCI team for World Cup 2023. How many members, how many cricketers have been selected by BCCI to represent BCCI India in the Cricket World Cup? 15. Does that mean we have only 15 cricketers in the entire country? No. We have thousands of cricketers, or maybe lakhs of cricketers. Some of them don't play professionally. Some play at the under 17, under 14, under 19, under 21, under 23. Some play at the domestic Ranji Trophy, other trophies, so many different trophies. Some play professionally. Some people like me, they don't play professionally. We play for fun. But does that mean we have only 15 cricketers in India? No, we have other cricketers also, but they are not part of the World Cup. Similarly, there are various types of urban local bodies in India, but not all of them are under 74th Amendment. We have various types of urban local bodies in India. We have various types of urban government in India, but not all of them are part of 74th Amendment. 74th Amendment talks about, number one, municipal corporation. What is this municipal corporation? A municipality for a large city. What is a large city? For example, Bombay, Mumbai, for example, Delhi, for example, Chennai, for example, Calcutta, for example, Hyderabad, for example, Bengaluru. We have municipal corporation. And this municipal corporation has three important areas. One is the council, the other is the standing committee, then we have the commissioner. Who is a council? All the members who are directly elected by the people to this municipal corporation, they are councillors. And they are governed by 74th Amendment. How are they governed by 74th Amendment? That means in this council, not less than 1/3 will be women. In this council, SCs and STs will be provided reservation to the proportion of their population. That means elections will be conducted, direct elections will take place, people will directly elect their councillors, and then this council is the main legislative wing of the corporation. Constitution says under 74th Amendment that when the state legislature will enact a law to establish these municipalities, because just like Panchayati Raj institutions are established in every state based on the law passed by the state legislature, municipalities, municipal corporations, urban local bodies are also established in every state based on the law passed by the state legislature. And when the state legislature is enacting a law to provide for municipal corporation to Mumbai, it will be governed by 74th Amendment. That means it will have to include the compulsory provisions of 73rd Amendment. If it wants, it may include optional provisions of 74th Amendment as well. What is the compulsory provision? You have to directly elect your councillors. What is the compulsory provision? You have to provide reservation to SCs and STs in proportion to their population. What is the compulsory provision? Not less than 1/3 should be women. What is the compulsory provision? If you are qualified to become an MLA, you are qualified to become a councillor. If you are disqualified from becoming an MLA, you are disqualified from becoming a councillor as well. What is the compulsory provision? State Election Commission will organize elections. What is the compulsory provision? There has to be State Finance Commission, which will give funds to these municipalities from the consolidated fund of the state. So all those things that we discussed in panchayats are valid here as well. No difference. But then there are some optional provisions as well. If the state legislature wants, those experts, they can also be made part of the council. MLAs, MPs can also be made part of the council. OBCs can also be provided representation. Uttar Pradesh recently decided to provide reservation to OBCs in urban local bodies. But this was stopped by Allahabad High Court. Allahabad High Court said you can't do this unless and until you follow the triple test. What is this triple test? Number one, set up a committee. And this committee should study, should come up with a report, and this committee should talk about feasibility of reservation. Then it should talk about proportion of reservation. Feasibility or implications of reservation, then feasible proportion of reservation, then 50%. What does that mean? Should seats be reserved in urban local bodies for SCs and STs? Yes, in proportion to their population. It is a compulsory provision. Not less than 1/3 of the seats in urban local bodies should be women. Yes, it's a compulsory provision. But can reservation be provided to OBCs? Yes, but that's a voluntary provision. If state legislature wants, they may provide reservation. Uttar Pradesh decided that in urban local bodies, we will provide reservation to OBCs. Allahabad High Court said you can't do that unless and until you follow the triple test. Because it's not a mandatory provision to provide reservation to OBCs. If you want to provide reservation to OBCs, you have to perform 3 tests. Test number 1, set up a committee, so that this committee will look into the implications of reservation. Implication of reservation in the sense, if we will provide reservation to OBCs, it is going to empower them politically. Study this and then come up with a report. Once you decide, okay, yes, reservation leads to empowerment, then you tell us what should be the proportion of reservation. What should be the percentage of reservation for OBCs? And total reservation should not exceed 50%. Once these 3 tests are performed, then you can give reservation to OBCs in urban local bodies. After this judgment, the Uttar Pradesh government set up a committee. Committees looked into the implication of reservation, then prescribed the proportion for reservation to meet within 50% limit, and then reservation was provided to OBCs in urban local bodies in UP. So the point is, everything that is there in 73rd Amendment for panchayats, that is there for urban local bodies as well. If we look at municipal corporation, we will have a council where councillors are directly elected. This council will be presided over by mayor, will be assisted by deputy mayor. But who is this mayor or the deputy mayor going to be? Whether this mayor is directly elected or indirectly elected, whether people will directly vote to elect a mayor or people will vote for councillors and councillors will elect a mayor, whether direct election or indirect election, that state legislature shall decide. And in some states, in most of the states, mayor holds office for 1 year, can be re-elected again, but mayor does not have a power of his own. Mayor is like the ceremonial head of the council. Whether decisions are to be taken, what decisions are to be taken, that council decides by majority. And what are these powers that are given to urban local bodies? There are 12, there is 12th schedule of the constitution, which talks about 18 items, 18 subjects are given to urban local bodies. But the state legislature may, just like the state legislature the state legislature may allocate 29 items to Panchayati Raj institutions from 11th schedule. In the same fashion, the state legislature may allocate responsibilities of these 18 items mentioned in the 12th schedule to urban local bodies. Urban planning, roads and bridges, fire services, cattle ponds, burial and burial grounds, slum improvement, urban poverty alleviation, pollution. All these are 18 items mentioned under 12th schedule of the constitution. That means if the state legislature wants, it may transfer one, two, all, or none of these subjects to urban local bodies. And now the council will decide on all these subjects, if these subjects are transferred to it, and ultimately will enact policies and programs. The job of the mayor is just like the speaker. He will preside over the meetings of this council. He will sit on the presiding officer's chair, preside on the meetings of this council, and whatever decision is taken by the council is binding. And this mayor is assisted by the deputy mayor. But since this is a large city, just like we have parliament, where if there is a particular bill, if there is a particular ministry, instead of the entire parliament looking into this particular bill, understanding this particular bill, or looking into the working of a particular ministry, we have independent committees, individual committees. One committee of the parliament for home ministry, one committee for finance ministry, one committee for electronics and information technology ministry. Similarly, we should have standing committees in urban local bodies as well, standing committees in municipal corporation as well. So if health is under the urban local bodies, we will have a standing committee on health. If education is under urban local bodies in urban areas, we will have a standing committee on education, standing committee on waste disposal, standing committee on fire services. That means a group of councillors will be part of the standing committee, and they will look at individual problems being faced by this particular city. And whatever they decide, council decides, standing committee decides, that is now to be implemented. And who will implement this? Commissioner. Who is the commissioner? A senior IAS officer. And who is this commissioner? Appointed by the state. That means the state government will appoint a commissioner, commissioner of the Delhi Municipal Corporation, commissioner of BBMP in Bangalore, commissioner of BMC in Mumbai, to act upon those decisions which are taken by the council and the standing committee. This is for a larger city, and for a larger city, we have a municipal corporation. Clear? For a smaller city, we have a municipality. And we will discuss municipality after a break. Okay? Yes, no, or you don't need a break? Okay, let's meet at 8:15. See you on the other side. Now, for a smaller city, we have a municipality. And this is also governed by 74th Amendment. In a sense, we will have a council, we will have a standing committee, and we will have a CEO, Chief Executive Officer. This council, there will be direct election. Members will be directly elected by the people. Reservation not less than one-third for women. Reservation for SCs and STs in proportion to their population. Reservation for OBCs if the state legislature wants. Reservation for those who are experienced in municipal administration if the state legislature wants. It will be headed by a president. In some states, it is chairman. Will be assisted by the vice president or deputy chairperson. All the decisions are taken by the council, which will be implemented by the CEO. The CEO is normally a senior state civil services officer appointed by the state government. And just like we have standing committees on various subjects at municipal corporation level, we will have standing committees at the municipal level as well, for a smaller city as well. But I told you, if there are 15 cricketers who are nominated by the BCCI to represent India in the World Cup, that doesn't mean we have only 15 cricketers in India. We will have lakhs of cricketers in India. Similarly, if 74th Amendment talks about urban local bodies in the form of municipal corporation for a bigger city, municipality for a smaller city, but there are other urban local institutions as well, which provide urban infrastructure to their areas, but they are not covered by 74th Amendment. Which are these? For example, notified area committee. We call it a notified area committee because it is notified by the governor on the advice of the chief minister, notified in the government gazette. We call it a notified area committee. All members are nominated by the state government. That means no election takes place. But if there is a particular area in a state, particular area of a state which is considered important by the state, but this particular area does not fall under the category of a village, that means we cannot give it a Panchayati Raj institution, is not also a big city for which we will have a municipal corporation, is not even a smaller city for which we will have a municipality. Nevertheless, this area is considered important by the state. It is notified in the government gazette, and for this particular area, we will have a notified area committee. All the members of this committee will be nominated by the state government. What will be the function of this notified area committee? That will be determined by the state government. That means it may be possible that for this notified area committee, for this particular area of a state, maybe this notified area committee will decide the roads, the bridges, the cattle ponds, irrigation, fire services, education. Any role can be prescribed to this notified area committee by the state government. But since it is not mentioned under 74th Amendment, which means elections are not required, which means powers may not be provided to this notified area committee. But there are notified area committees in different states in India, which is entirely a nominated body. And whatever role is prescribed to it is determined by the state government, which means notified area committee is not covered under 74th Amendment. That's it. You don't have to dig further. Just keep this in mind. Similarly, we have cantonment board. I don't know whether you have heard of it or you have visited some of these cantonment boards. But in the city, in the heart of the city, we have some cantonment boards as well. These cantonment boards are set up based on the parliamentary law. Panchayati Raj institutions are established by the laws passed by the state legislature. Municipal corporation, municipality are established by laws passed by the state legislature. But within the city, there is an area which is controlled by the army. Army comes under central government. Supreme Commander of Armed Forces is the President of India. So if in this military area, civilian population are present, how do we administer the civilian population of this military area? For that, we have a cantonment board. These cantonment boards are established by the law passed by the parliament, because even if it is in a state, but army comes under center. And if you have witnessed or visited any of these cantonment boards, you would have found that the roads are perfect. Infrastructure is perfect. Why? Because army gets involved into this. And army is very quick in taking decisions. When Asian Games were to be held in Delhi in the 1980s, our preparation was not very good. The infrastructure was not developing properly. Ultimately, Rajiv Gandhi had to call in the army. Army will have its own engineers. Army will have its own doctors as well. Army will have its own personnel. And quickly, in one night, they would set up a bridge. Long story short, in this cantonment board, we will have members from civilian as well. Civilians will also be part of this. Members of the army as well. What is their job? Their job is to ensure roads, education, or let's say sewage treatment for the civilian population living in military areas. For that, we have cantonment board. But it is not governed by 74th Amendment. Municipal corporation, municipality, to provide urban infrastructure in urban areas. But in an urban area, we have a cantonment board which is not under 74th Amendment. It is set up by the parliamentary law. That's it. We're done with this. There is no need to dig further. Similarly, we have a town area committee. It's not a city. It's not a village. It's a town, which is fast moving to become a city, but it is still not a complete city. Predominant economic activity may not be non-agricultural. For this committee, for this particular town, we will have a town area committee, which may be either completely elected or completely nominated, or a mix of elected as well as nominated. And some functions are given to this town area committee. Some functions like your only job is to ensure street lighting. Your job is to ensure roads. That's it. These are the only two functions. 3 more functions may be added, but that's it. Town area committee. Not for the entire city, not for a village, a town. For that, we may have a committee. The state government will decide whether it is going to be entirely nominated or entirely elected, or a mix of nominated as well as elected. Not all items mentioned in the 12th schedule will be provided to it. Some items may be provided. But it is not governed by 74th Amendment. That means we don't need to organize these elections by the State Election Commission. That means we don't need State Finance Commission to provide funding to this town area committee. It's for the state government to decide. That's it. Move to something else. Township. For example, Tatas will have their own township. Ambanis will have their own township. Jindals will have their own township. That means there is a factory owner. There is a corporate entity. For example, Jindals. They have factory in a particular area. Whoever is working in these factories, they're also provided accommodation in the same area. How do you provide roads? How do you provide infrastructure, sewage treatment? There are some townships where educational institutions are also present. This is entirely bureaucratic. That means private. That means the companies or the factories, they will have their own officers to provide urban infrastructure to their own employees who are working in the same area as they have a factory in. That is what we call a township. There is a township Bokero. There is a township of Jindals in Odisha. There are townships in different parts of the country. But it is not governed by 74th Amendment. Similarly, we have Port Trust. There is a port in Kochi. There is a port. There are port cities. Ports are under center. But in this port area, there are civilian population also residing. How do we provide infrastructure to these port areas, to those living under the port areas? That will be decided by Parliament, because ports are under union list, are under the control of the center. These port trusts are not governed by 74th Amendment. Why are we discussing this? Number one, it's not important, but since it is mentioned in Lakshmikant, we are discussing it. What are we discussing? We are discussing local government. In rural areas, we have Panchayati Raj institutions. In urban areas, we have urban local bodies. But there are some urban areas where there is some form of local government, but this local government is not covered by 74th Amendment. For example, if it's a township, we will not have elections under 74th Amendment. That Jindals will decide how to run this township. It's a bureaucratic exercise. There are port trusts. Ports are under center. Even if it's an estate, even if it's an urban area, but the center will decide how to administer these ports and how to provide infrastructure to the civilians residing in these port areas. So 74th Amendment deals with municipal corporation and municipalities. So far as other areas are concerned, whether it is notified area committee, whether it is town area committee, whether it is cantonment board, whether it is township, whether it is a port trust, these are not governed by 74th Amendment. Full stop, period. And then we have something called a special purpose agency. And what is this special purpose agency? I will tell you slightly later. Why? Because now we will analyze. We will analyze what are the issues and solutions when it comes to urban local bodies. What are the issues and solutions when it comes to Panchayati Raj institutions? So let's analyze 73rd and 74th Amendment together. Let us first look at what is good about these two amendments, then what is bad about these amendments, then we will suggest the reforms. And what we are discussing now is important for your mains examination. And if you look at previous year's question papers, you will see every year at least one question is asked from 73rd and 74th Amendment. What is so good? We say India is the largest democracy of the world. Because look at the population and look at number of representatives in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, state legislative assemblies, state legislative council. What 73rd and 74th Amendment has done, It has converted India from world's largest democracy to the most intensely democratic country of the world. How intensely democratic? Converted India into a grassroots democracy. How grassroots democracy? More than 3 million representatives at the three tiers of local government. 73rd and 74th Amendment leads to elections to Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies. More than 3 million people are elected by the people. These more than 3 million people are elected representatives who represent people in all the three tiers of government, converting India from the world's largest democracy to the world's most intensely democratic country, where democracy is reaching the grassroots. Converting India from a representative democracy to a participatory democracy. That is what is good about these two amendments. Number one. Number two, reservation for SCs and STs. Reservation for women. Not less than 1/3. And there are states which have provided more than 1/3 reservation to women. States such as Odisha, states such as Bihar, where 50% reservation is provided for women. Which means what these 73rd and 74th amendments have done, it have provided opportunity to marginalized communities. It has provided opportunities to disadvantaged sections of our society, that you can also be part of policy making. And you can also be part of self-government. And you can also have a voice. One-third women, SC/ST reservation. These were the marginalized communities, disadvantaged sections of the society. Because of their political empowerment, they are now part of urban local bodies and Panchayati Raj institutions. And now these marginalized communities, they are the policy makers. And these policy makers are governing themselves, self-government. That is good about 73rd and 74th Amendment. What is good about it is that finally it has implemented a Gandhian directive principle of state policy under Article 40 of the Constitution. The state shall organize village panchayats and empower them with powers to enable them to function as units of rural local self-government. We went a step further. We provided urban local government as well. We implemented Article 40 of the Constitution. That is another good point about 73rd and 74th Amendment. Not just this. If you look at during COVID-19, these institutions played a very important role in controlling the spread of pandemic. You might have read, you might have heard that pandemic struck urban areas more. We saw the increased incidents of COVID-19 outbreak in the urban areas. Rural areas were least affected. There are experts who say it is because of the representatives in Panchayati Raj institutions. They played a very important role that through Gram Sabha, through Gram Panchayat, through Panchayat Samiti, through Zilla Parishad, they created awareness, told people to stay at home, don't mix with each other. We have to control this pandemic because people themselves were now responsible for controlling the pandemic. We are empowering the people. That is the good part about 73rd and 74th Amendment. Not just this. When we look at the powers which are given to Panchayati Raj institutions and municipalities, initially it was a top down approach. Now it is converted into a bottom up approach. Bottom up approach in the sense that now the villagers themselves at a particular Gram Sabha, they decide what we are going to do with minor forest produce. Whether we will auction it or we will use it for our own betterment. What kind of school do we need? What kind of dispensary do we need? And ultimately, the people themselves, rather than the center or the state deciding what you need, it is the people themselves who understand their needs and then they implement policies to factor their needs. It's a bottom up approach now. It has created more accountability. There is something known as span of control. If you are a student of public administration, you might have read this or you would read this span of control. Span of control in the sense, if I'm an individual officer, at a given point of time, how many subordinates can I effectively manage? I can manage 10 people. What if I'm told to manage 1 lakh people? I may still focus on these 10 people, hold them accountable, but the remaining set of people, I will never come to know what they are doing, what they are working, because my span of control is restricted to 10. We have individuals Am I audible, visible now? Yes. Sorry for the interruption. More accountability because of Panchayati Raj institutions. More accountability in the sense we were discussing about span of control, that my span of control would be restricted to 10. I may not be able to know what the other individuals are doing, what the other officers are doing, because I can only focus on certain limited number of people. Imagine a situation, we have ministry at the central level, we have ministry at the state level, we have the officers as well. But what these officers are doing at the local level, at the village level, the government of the state would never come to know, or rarely would come to know. Now we have these elected individuals to Gram Panchayat, to Panchayat Samiti, to Zilla Parishad, to urban local bodies. And these elected members, they ask the bureaucrats, the civil servants, come and tell us, if you are saying you have spent 1 lakh rupees on the construction of a road, where is that road? Every Sunday or every week, they would ask these officers to present themselves before the panchayat. What have you exactly done? We told you last time that we need a cattle pond, but that is not working. That is not helpful. So basically, now these bureaucrats are now becoming accountable, responsible to the elected representatives. More accountability has resulted. More accountability means over a period of time, less corruption. All that is because of 73rd and 74th Amendment. But it has also been bad or ineffective. Bad or ineffective? Reason number one, Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar was against empowering Panchayati Raj institutions. Sounds strange, but he had a valid reason. What was the valid reason? He said caste is ingrained into the minds of the people. If we will empower the villagers who have caste mindset, ultimately they are going to create a system which perpetuates caste inequality. They will never allow people from different marginalized communities to take important decisions. They will isolate them. So you empower villages, you are going to perpetuate caste atrocity inequality in India. And perhaps Dr. Ambedkar was right. Selvam, he studied Coimbatore. Conducted a study, a survey of Coimbatore, was an IAS officer, later on became a sociologist as well, studied Coimbatore. And there he realized that Dalits are forced not to contest elections. Although there are seats reserved for them, but the members of the upper castes in a village, they force these Dalits not to contest elections. So where is caste-based empowerment? Even in areas where Dalits are contesting the elections and they become sarpanch, ultimately what happens? If I am a Dalit sarpanch, I sit on the chair of the sarpanch in this panchayat office. As soon as I see a member of the upper caste walk into my office, I get down for my chair, I sit on the floor, I give this chair to the member of the upper caste. Basically, caste is still in the mind of the people. Despite empowerment of SCs and STs, caste system is perpetuating, caste atrocities are perpetuating. We have not been able to eradicate caste, despite political empowerment. Number two, the emergence of Sarpanchpati. Panchayat, a series, a beautiful series on Amazon Prime. Since the seats are reserved for women, the seats are reserved by rotation. What is by rotation? That means if there are 100 seats, these 33 seats in this election will be reserved for women. Then these 33 seats will be reserved for women. then these 33 seats will be reserved for women. Okay? The problem with that is when the seats are reserved by rotation, it gives less incentive for elected representatives to build, connect with masses, and help them. How? Listen to me carefully. You're working in an organization. You're working very hard. 9 to 5 or 9 to 9, working very hard, working on your weekends as well. But imagine a situation, you have got a job somewhere else. Now you are in the notice period. In this notice period, will you work? No. Why? Normally, there are some exceptions, 100%. Normally, people won't work in their notice period. Why? Because they know they're not here for more time. They're here for 2 months or 3 months maximum. After that, they have to shift to some other industry, some other institution, some other company. When you're reserving seats on the basis of rotation, you are keeping these elected representatives just like they are in the notice period. Because I know I am an elected representative today, but tomorrow this seat does not belong to me. Someone else will have to contest this seat, which means I will not be able to connect with the masses. I will not be able to help them because I know tomorrow this seat will not be reserved. That's problem number one. Problem number two is this concept of Sarpanch Pati. Miss Neena Gupta, that particular seat, which was previously held by her husband was the Sarpanch from that seat, from that village. But now this seat is reserved for women. Instead, because you can't contest on your own, you're a man, now the seat is reserved for women. Instead of asking any woman from this village to contest the election, he asks his wife, you contest the election. But my dear husband, what will I do? I don't know anything about politics and I'm not interested as well. So who told you to be interested in politics? You stay at home, in kitchen, make beautiful chapatis for me, beautiful and amazing sumptuous food for me and for my daughter as well. You just get elected and on your chair I will be sitting. Who am I? I am Sarpanch Pati. That means I am the husband of the Sarpanch. But since she is not doing it, I am doing it because she is my surrogate. That is why when Jitu Bhaiya walks into that panchayat office and says, where is the Sarpanch? Sarpanch sir is coming. But I thought she's a woman. Yeah, but the real decisions are taken by the husband of that woman, Sarpanch Pati. So we thought 73rd and 74th Amendment is leading to political empowerment of marginalized, weaker sections of the society by empowering the Dalits, by empowering the women, but the reality is different. Dalits are forced not to contest elections. Even when they are contesting the elections, they become sarpanches, but they don't take the decisions. Decisions are taken by the upper castes. Even when women are getting elected, but they don't sit on the chair of the sarpanch, they don't participate in the panchayat meetings, it is their husbands who take the call. So is it political empowerment of women or continued empowerment of men in disguise of women's reservation? And that is why people say same thing is going to happen with women's reservation bill as well. There are these seats which are reserved for women. Let's say, for example, it is person X who is right now the representative from this constituency. Tomorrow, this seat becomes reserved for women. It's not that any woman would become elected. It is the wife or daughter, very rarely daughter of this person would get elected from this seat. That's another problem. There is a bigger problem. And the bigger problem is MP lad scheme. What is MP lad scheme? Members of Parliament local area development scheme. Under the scheme, what happens? Every member of the parliament is given 5 crores to be spent on his or her constituency. That is what we call MP lad. It's not that this 5 crore rupee is given to an MP or an MLA so that you can pocket this money and then decide how do I want to spend this money. No. You can recommend works to the tune of 5 crore rupees, which means I am a member of the parliament or I am the member of the legislative assembly. I have a fund known as MP lad. This fund is not given to me. This money is not given to me. This money is with the district collector. But what I can do, I can recommend to the district collector works in my constituency. The value of these works would be 5 crore rupees. Now you will ask, sir, what is the problem with this? What will I recommend district collector to do? I will recommend district collector that please do one thing. Set up an irrigation plant in my constituency. Set up a school in my constituency. Set up a road in my constituency. Set up a cattle pond in my constituency. Set up a burial or beautify the burial ground or cremation ghats in my constituency. Set up a library in my constituency. So then what is wrong with that? What is wrong is that all this is within the legitimate domain of panchayat. This should have been the job of the Panchayati Raj institution. So on one hand, you are saying we will empower panchayats by giving them the power that you can make rules and regulations for all these matters mentioned in the 11th schedule or 12th schedule. But at the same time, you are giving an MP lad money to an MP, to an MLA. He is basically interfering in the domain of panchayats and municipalities. Instead, the better solution should have been abolish this MP lad scheme. Abolish this MP lad scheme. Instead, give this money to Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies. Because if you are continuing with these MP lad schemes, you are basically giving power to an MP or an MLA to interfere in the legitimate domain of panchayats and municipalities. That's not the only problem. The problem is Constitution says under 73rd Amendment and the 74th Amendment that state legislature may, what the state legislature can do, it may transfer these 11 scheduled subjects to the panchayats, transfer these 12 scheduled subjects to urban local bodies. But the term is may. If the state legislature wants, it can. If it does not want, it may not. This term may should be replaced by shall. The state legislature shall transfer all these 29 subjects to Panchayati Raj institutions mentioned under 11th schedule. The state legislature shall transfer these 18 subjects mentioned in the 12th schedule to urban local bodies. This word may shall be replaced by, should be replaced by shall. But that's not the only problem. There is another problem. You cannot become urban local self-government or rural local self-government unless and until 3 F's are transferred. One is function, funds, functionaries. Functions you are not giving to these urban local bodies and municipalities because of this term may. The state legislature may. Second, funds you are not given. There was a study done in Kolar, which is a district in Karnataka. Karnataka is considered to be the shining example of Panchayati Raj institutions. It's working well. But a study was conducted in Kolar and it was found that for majority of these schemes, the amount of money given is 1 crore rupees. Majority, total 1 crore. How can you spend 1 crore rupees for so many schemes or solve so many problems which are there at the Panchayati Raj level, you can't. Which means state legislature has to pass a money bill to basically give funds to Panchayati Raj institutions. But they are not given. They are given less amount of money, which will not empower them to become self-government. But sir, these Panchayati Raj institutions can also impose taxes, tolls. But these Panchayati Raj institutions are not eager to do this. Why? Tax is always a problem. Tax is always considered a burden. I have to pay 30% of whatever I earn as tax. And every month when I see the salary slip, my heart pains. This much money I'm giving in the form of taxes. And then what is the end result? Roads are of poor quality, education is of poor quality, infrastructure is bad. Look at our airports, look at our railway stations. Your heart aches. But at the same time, you have to pay tax. But when people resent tax, imagine a situation that taxes are imposed to us. We don't even see these MPs on a day-to-day basis. You may have never had an interaction with your MP. Never. But these villages, in a particular village, there is Gram Panchayat. Gram Panchayat people are directly elected by the villagers as well. So they meet these villagers on a regular basis. How can they impose tax on their own people with whom they interact on a daily basis? That's why Panchayati Raj institutions, they lack funds. One reason is they're not given enough money. Second reason is they have an option to raise money by imposing taxes, but they're reluctant to impose taxes because they say, how can we impose tax on our own people with whom we interact on a daily basis, with whom we share our lunch and dinner on a daily basis? We will not do that. So funds is an issue, functions are an issue, functionary is an issue. Who is the functionary? The relationship between officers and elected representatives is undefined in this law. Undefined in the sense, with hand on your heart, tell me one thing. Tomorrow you will clear the civil services exam, you will become a bureaucrat. Fine. Now you are told something to do by an MP or an MLA or a minister, and you are told to do exactly opposite by a member of the Panchayati Raj institution or an urban local body. Who would you listen to? Obviously this group. Why not this group? Why? Because the relationship is not defined. 73rd Amendment, 74th Amendment, it does not define the relationship between the elected representatives and the appointed officials. And appointed officials, they listen to MPs, MLAs, and ministers. They don't listen to the elected representatives at the grassroots because they consider them inferior, for the lack of a better word. What is the solution here? The solution is either define this relationship or allow local governments to recruit their own staff. So that when an MLA is passing a bill or a legislative assembly is passing a bill, they know this bill will be implemented because they are appointing their own officers. When Panchayati Raj institutions pass something, when they decide on certain matters, they're not sure whether those matters will be accepted or not, because who is the implementing authority? Bureaucrats. And bureaucrats, they won't listen to them. Either you allow them to raise their own staff, to generate their own staff, to recruit their own staff, or you define the relationship and make it categorical that you have to listen to these elected representatives. But that's not the only problem. There are few more problems as well. What are these problems? First, Administrative Reforms Commission. ARC, second ARC, in all their reports. And also there was a report by Manishankar Iyer Committee way back in 2013. Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. Mr. Manishankar Iyer, he was the Panchayati Raj Minister between 2004 to 2009. At that time, he was told that you set up a committee, you discuss, look into how these Panchayati Raj institutions have fared. Because we established them in 1993, then 2003, 2013. So basically, it's 2 decades of Panchayati Raj institutions establishment or urban local bodies establishment. How are they faring? Manishankar Iyer Committee said this is like treadmill economics. What is treadmill economics? You want to run, and you want to run 5 kilometers. You run on the treadmill. Keep on running. After 20 minutes or 1 hour, you see that it will display that you have run 5 kilometers. But have you really completed 5 kilometers? No, you're still at the same place. In 1993, what was the HDI rank of India? What was the rank of India amongst all the countries on Human Development Index? That was the same in 2013. It means as if we have not moved. Despite spending crores and crores of rupees on poverty alleviation, despite spending millions of dollars on poverty alleviation, we are still on the same on Human Development Index, as if we have not moved a single bit, a single place. Manishankar Iyer said this is primarily because of so many central sponsored schemes. Balwant Raji Mehta committee was set up to look into Community Development Program National Extension Service. Balwant Rai Committee Mehta said these programs are bound to fail. Why? Because this is top-down approach. We need bottom up. We need democratic decentralization. Same thing is happening today. So many central sponsored schemes. Who is conceptualizing these schemes? Center. Who is implementing these schemes? Officers at the state level. Where are Panchayati Raj institutions consulted? Nowhere. So the very reason why you thought that democratic decentralization, give them function, give them funds, give them functionaries, so that they decide what is good for their village, they decide what is good for their district. Instead, now it is still the center deciding what is good for you. Mushrooming of these central sponsored schemes, hundreds of central sponsored schemes, where the schemes are conceptualized by the center, implemented by the state's officers. Where is the role of Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies? Nowhere. Then what is the purpose of empowering these Panchayati Raj institutions? What is the purpose of creating these Panchayati Raj institutions? We are facing bigger other problems. Problems in urban local bodies. Delayed elections. For example, in Chennai. For example, in Kolkata. For example, in Bengaluru. Elections are delayed. Elections were supposed to be held after every 5 years. In case of premature dissolution of urban local bodies, election should be held within 6 months. Even then, the elections are delayed. Why? because the state is saying, you see, we need OBC list because we want to provide reservation to OBCs. For that, it will take us some time. We will delay the elections. Despite constitutional protection, elections are delayed. Not just that, administering urban local body is not an easy task, because in cities, look at the problems that we are facing: traffic, pollution, drugs, prostitution. All these are problems. And to solve all these problems, we need experts. To rope in experts, we need to give them good salary. Where can you generate money to pay salary? Urban local bodies can impose property tax, which will give you good money if you are in Mumbai, where the real estate is very expensive. Property tax will give you good amount of money, good resources. That is why we say Bombay Municipal Corporation is the wealthiest urban local body in the entire country. But what about other municipal corporations? What about other municipalities? Give them more taxation power. That's what first and the second Administrative Reforms Commission has recommended. More and more taxes should be removed from the state, given to these urban local bodies, so that through these taxes they can generate enough money so that they can invest in research, development, and paying salaries to experts who can help you solve these problems. Because why can't we have cluster cities? Cluster cities in the sense, this is Delhi. This is Bengaluru. Overcrowded, overcrowded. But still employment opportunities are there. When employment opportunities are there, that means we will see migration of people from different parts of the country, different parts of the state migrating to Bengaluru. It will be a huge strain on the resources, on the infrastructure of Bengaluru. There will come a point where Bengaluru will become unlivable. What is the solution? Cluster city. What is a cluster city? 100 kilometers away from Bengaluru. Set up infrastructure so that you can set up flats, accommodation, educational opportunities also, so that if I'm a parent, I will work in Bengaluru, but roads, highways, metros, alternate transport is provided in such a manner that I can even cover 100 kilometers in couple of hours, reach this cluster city where my family is residing. It will be cheaper for me. At the same time, it will reduce burden on Bengaluru. But it requires a lot of investment. It requires also deep thinking. It requires, you will have to pay experts who will come up with these innovative solutions. For that, the municipal corporation should have its own resources to fund. And that is why some people say there should be directly elected mayor. Whatever decisions are taken by municipal council has to be implemented by the commissioner. Commissioner is appointed by the state government. That means you will be accountable to the state government. You won't listen to what the mayor is saying. Let's have a directly elected mayor, so that this directly elected mayor, apart from direct election, you will have the city police commissioner report to you. That is how we can reimagine polity. What is the job of the MP in Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha? To pass laws. What is the job of an MLA? To pass laws at the state level. The real day-to-day activities, the real day-to-day problem solving, that's the job of urban local bodies and municipalities. So the job of the legislator is to make laws. That's it. Don't get involved into day-to-day activities. That's the job of Panchayati Raj institutions and municipalities. And for that, we need a directly elected mayor. And the city police commissioner should report to the mayor. That's how you can have this working relationship with the bureaucrats. Otherwise, we are still going the same route. We have institutions, but they are not working effectively. That is the analysis of Panchayati Raj institutions and municipalities. There are some good points, there are some bad points, but there are some reforms that we can suggest. Reform, this term, the state government, the state legislature may should be replaced by shall. More taxation power should be given to urban local bodies, apart from property tax. Personnel or functionaries, either amend anti-defection law to ensure that these functionaries report to you, or allow these local bodies to generate, to recruit their own staff. Allow political parties to contest elections in their own capacity. Because today we are seeing in some states there are elections which take place, but political parties, they don't set up candidates to contest these elections because the law is unclear. Law does not explicitly say that political parties can contest elections in their official capacity. That means the Congress, BJP can set up candidates for these elections. Yes, in some states they do that, but it is not mentioned in the law. Define that law, amend that law to allow political parties to contest elections in their official capacity, so that you can empower these elected representatives then and give 3 Fs: funds, functions, and functionaries. That will transform India from a truly representative to a truly participatory democracy. That brings us to the closure of 73rd and 74th Amendment. In the Constitution, is there any reservation for the third gender? No. Yes, Manpreet is asking, what about special purpose agency? In a city, we have electricity board, or we have pollution control board. These are what we call special purpose agencies. Agencies created for a special purpose. Purpose is pollution control. The chairperson of the State Pollution Control Board, the members of the State Pollution Control Board appointed by the state government, accountable to state government. That means the job of this pollution control board is to control pollution, take steps to control pollution. What are the innovative steps that we can take to control pollution? That will be the job of the State Pollution Control Board. But they will be accountable to the state government. But in 12th schedule of the Constitution, pollution control is under the domain of urban local bodies. So municipal corporation, the mayor, the chairperson, they should decide, the council should decide what are the steps that we should take to control pollution. But instead, it is the Pollution Control Board which is taking these decisions, and they report to the state government. So, what the state governments are doing, they're doing something clever and something which is against the spirit of 73rd and 74th Amendment. What are they doing? They look at the individual items which are in 12th schedule, electricity, pollution control. They snatch these powers from urban local bodies, create special purpose agencies for those special subjects, so that urban local bodies, they do not have any interference in these matters. They're deprived of their genuine powers, and the power that should have been to an urban local body is now taken by the state government, violating the spirit of 74th Amendment. That's a special purpose agency. Sir, in my village, there is no Gram Sabha takes place even for one time, even if it's mentioned 11th schedule. What will be the punishment for this? What is your village? Where are you? 74th Amendment also talks about district planning and metropolitan planning committee. For example, there is a district. It will have members from panchayats as well, members from urban local bodies as well. Together, they will plan for the entire district. Just like you plan for the entire country, you plan for the entire state, you will plan for individual district as well. District planning committee, which will have members from maybe this district, half of it is a village, another half of it is a city or it's an urban area. So for this particular district, there will be a municipality for one area, there will be a panchayat for another area. All these members will come together, and for this district will create a plan. Similarly, for metropolitan area where the population of this area is more than a million, for that we will have a metropolitan planning committee. Any other question? If yes, please let me know. Otherwise, we will end the class and we will discuss judiciary tomorrow. So we will initiate a discussion on judiciary tomorrow, Friday, and then Saturday also we have a class. If you look at your schedule, we will have a class on Sunday as well. So Sunday also we will start the class at either 6 or 7, that I will tell you tomorrow. Either 6 or 7, and we will have a 4-hour class on Sunday, so that on Sunday we can complete our syllabus. Tomorrow we will discuss judiciary. We will continue the discussion on judiciary till Saturday as well. Saturday, the second half of Saturday, we will discuss elections. We will hopefully complete elections on Sunday. And on Monday, there will be a doubt class. Whatever doubts you have had throughout these classes, any doubt related to Indian polity, you have to send us mail. I will get the collection of all these questions, and all these questions one by one we will discuss on Monday. So Monday is an exclusive class on doubt resolution, and we will complete the syllabus on Sunday. We will have the class on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 classes, but we will extend the class on Sunday. Maybe we will extend the class till 11 or 12. We will complete the syllabus on Sunday. If a chief minister is arrested, who would assume control of the state or a union territory? A new chief minister will be appointed by the political party which has the majority on the floor of the Legislative Assembly. Sir, please take my question. Sir, we have possible resources with us, but still political interruption is spoiling everything. Give your views. You are referring to what? Important chapters of Lakshmikant, I will tell you on Sunday. So empowering local bodies more will be harmful as they distribute money and win the next one. Yes, there have been instances of corruption in urban local bodies. The corruption is rampant. In fact, no personal training takes place. For example, when an urban local member is elected, what is his job or her job responsibility? There are only few states which have special training sessions for newly elected councillors. The rest of the states, they simply don't care. So we need proper training sessions for them. Deputy CM post is not mentioned in the constitution, but it is also not unconstitutional. Why? Because when Mr. Devi Lal took oath of the deputy prime minister, matter went to the court. The court was told that there is no such post as deputy prime minister. The court said even if there is no post, but Mr. Devi Lal has taken the oath of a cabinet minister, it's just the designation is of a deputy prime minister. That doesn't change anything. So it is okay. As you said, MLA or CM put pressure on collector, so he unwillingly ignores vulnerable sections for upliftment. Yes, that is the political reality, and we have to live with this. It's only when you will become the district collector or a commissioner, maybe you will be upright, you will do what is best for the society. That's the only hope. So during answer writing, I get half marks. Is it good? It's very good. 50%, you are the topper. Pressure group topic that is discussed in governance. So look at governance syllabus, governance, transparency, accountability, citizens charter, role of civil services in democracy, various extra constitutional bodies, National Human Rights Commission, State Information or Central Information Commission. All these will be e-governance models. All this will be discussed in governance. Sarpanch wants to resign, he will send his resignation to the Sachiv, to the Panchayat Secretary. Okay, so let's meet tomorrow, 6 o'clock in the morning. We will discuss judiciary. And then Saturday, the class duration 3.5 hours. For 2 hours, we will discuss judiciary. So in 5-6 hours, we will discuss judiciary and complete it. Then elections, we will spend another 5-6 hours completing elections. First on Saturday, and then on Sunday for 4.5 hours. And then on Monday, we will have a special doubt class. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much. Stay safe. See you tomorrow. Till then, have a great time. Bye bye.